is the #1 movie in the world. It's a must-see on the biggest screen you can find.
Don't try to impress anyone.
It will blow your mind.
What about what people will say?
I don't care what they say.
The Idea of You, rated R, now streaming only on Prime Video.
You only get that here at the sportsbook Born in Vegas, where they know how to treat you right.
Who you talking to, Jamie Foxx?
Bonus bets, exclusive offers, real-world rewards. Bet MGM. Download and bet today. An everlasting saga that began long before this tournament kicked off. Two distinct stories, two different roads that now meet in Berlin. From the twisted minds of WandaVision, hungry for power, determined for revenge. Starring Katherine Hahn as the terrifying witch Agatha Harkness.
Join me.
What's good, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Take Time Out with Tre Mosley. I am your host, Tre Mosley, and that young man right there, and ladies, calm down, he's taken. This young dude I met about a year or so ago, and we were in an environment where there are a lot of talented people, and I hadn't heard him speak yet, and then he goes into the microphone, and I'm looking around like, where's the 40-year-old man that's coming out of this voice? And Jack is not quite yet 40. Hell, he's not quite yet 30. I don't even think he's 25. How old are you?
Yeah, I'm 25.
See, there you go. So he's at least there. So he's been here a quarter of his life already, and he sounds like a guy half his age. Ladies and gentlemen, and yes, ladies, again, he's taken. I give to you, Mr. Jack Sanders, sir.
Thank you for having me, sir. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Man, I've been big fan of your work for quite some time, and I was thinking, during my brief hiatus with the show, I'm like, I need to get some people on here that I have not, that I haven't gotten. And I was thinking about I got Marie, and then I said, wait, let me reach out to Jack. And crazy enough, and this is just bad on me, I had his number, but then I inboxed him on Instagram, and I saw a message he had sent me like a year or so ago asking me advice. And I'm like, how did I not see this? But if you know his sound and you've seen his work, I think he did okay without my advice. He's doing very, 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 very well. Jack is an interesting fella. From when we talked over the summer last year, I found out some interesting things and I think, at least I think, a lot of that has helped you um into your career. Um you come from I guess a family of educators.
Yeah, yeah. On both sides. My dad, he's now passed, but he was a
Sorry.
professor, an English professor. No, it's all right. He's an English professor and a published poet. And my mom is a therapist and a writer, and she writes short stories and is working on a novel now. So yeah, I come from a long lineage of words in the household that I think probably got somewhere into my brain through osmosis. So yeah, you're spot on.
See, and who says osmosis? You can tell, but my mom taught for 40 something years to 30, 40 years, so I get that. um but one of the things I really dig about you is um one, being as young as you are, and I'm not, uh I don't want to make it feel like it's you know this gen versus next gen. That's not
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
What's impressive is how you came into this, and you really said to yourself, "Well, hey, I want to get good at this," you know, you asked all the right questions, you surrounded yourself with the right people, and you're doing exceptionally well in this. Um, Talk about how, because I don't think voiceover was a destination for you, but it became a part of your journey because, uh, ladies and gentlemen, had he not discovered or found the great industry as voiceover, we could have easily seen him in Paris this past summer kicking goals on the pitch. So,
Actually, saving goals. I was a goalkeeper.
oh, he was a goalie. Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
even better. That's one of the glamour positions because you're either the hero or the goat. Um, being a goalkeeper. So talk about how your whole overseas excursion and playing the beautiful game as they call it. How did you get into that?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much when I was born, I was into it. I was playing. I'm from New York, so I grew up there, and I was just, as long as I can remember, I've been playing. And I played all through high school. That was my thing. That's how, a lot of my friends, we all got along doing that, playing soccer in the yard and stuff like that at recess, and watching all the World Cups growing up and everything like that. And eventually, I was playing college soccer at Bryant University, which is like a small D1 school. We're just a D1, but we would get beat by all the good schools.
Oh
So that was
wow.
a fun, fun position to be in. But I played there for 2 years, and then kind of part of my plan was that I wanted to eventually go play in Europe,
Yeah.
because those were the people that you'd see on TV that were the most technical players. They had the best strategy as a whole team, and that's kind of just the romantic idea is that if you're a soccer player, go play in Europe. And so halfway through school, I said, you know what, I'm gonna transfer to a school in somewhere in Europe. I applied to a bunch, and I said, wherever the chips fall, I'm going to go there, and I'm going to audition for, or try out. Let's see, audition. I'm going to try out for some teams. And I had a buddy studying abroad over there, and so I went and stayed with him for a bit and tried out. And I ended up getting into a club in Paris called ACBB. It's Athletic Club Boulogne-Billancourt. Um,
Nice.
right in the suburbs of Paris. And so I went and I did my last 2 years of college there while I was playing for this club.
That's
Yeah,
pretty cool. First, it's pretty cool to know that Paris has suburbs. Um, but
yeah,
how much of a culture shock was it for you? Was there a period where the translation kind of got in the way, or are you fluent in any languages? Well, I'm sure you picked up French while you were there, but
yeah. I picked up French while I was there. When I first went, I didn't speak any French. And so that was definitely a shock to my system. Kind of because it's a fun idea until you get there, and then you realize, oh, actually, I have to now learn how to speak this language, and people are saying stuff to me, and it's like magnified when you're on a soccer field, especially when you're a goalie, where you're kind of seen, you're the guy who can see the whole field, because
yeah.
you're all the way at the back, and so you're supposed to be the guy who's communicating with people and kind of supposed to be a sort of leader on the field, which is really hard when you don't know the language. So
Um, I'm sure.
yeah, so that was definitely a shock to me, but it also forced me to learn the language really quick, or just like, I would learn a few different commands that I knew were like, okay, I need to know this. I need to tell people, okay, shift left, shift right.
Oh, wow.
There's someone on your back, and you just kind of learn those commands first, and then it kind of builds from there. And it was funny because most of the team that I was playing with was mostly French African immigrant family. Their children were playing, and I
Sure.
was playing with them, so I learned like a French African slang almost way of speaking, which was funny when people would see me and they'd be like, What is this guy?" You
Like,
know?
how do you know that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's funny, but yeah, definitely a culture shock, and a crazy experience, in terms of like being resilient, just trying to get through that. Yeah,
Back.
cool.
So talk a little bit about, and I know you said you picked up slang, and so while you were there, what happened that I guess, prevented or caused you to say, well, maybe I'm not going to fulfill my dream? Like, when did the shift go from, or better yet, let me reverse field, as they do in soccer sometimes. So you go overseas, you're entrenched in the culture, you're a footballer doing what you do.
Indeed.
Um, how did you find this thing here?
Yeah. Basically I was playing at a level that was like it was a semi-professional level, and there was, we weren't getting paid much. It was like you get a stipend for like equipment. And as school was coming to an end, I was starting to realize I'm gonna need something more substantial to support myself. And I was looking at ways like how can I, if we're traveling and going to games on the weekend and we have practices at different hours, I'm like, well, what's something that's kind of flexible? So I was just kind of searching the internet for stuff that I'm like, where can I scrape some money and maybe do it from home or do it from wherever I'm going. And
Yeah.
people had told me for a while to like try voiceover, or try. I think people had told me just narrating audiobooks. I didn't even know what voiceover was probably at that point.
Right.
So I said, okay, let me try this thing. I think I saw it on like a top 10 list of like side hustles or something on one of those articles, and and I'm like, all right, let me see what it's about. And so I started, narrating some short stories for people, and just making a little money on the side. And then, um, kind of long story short was the pandemic hit.
Mm,
And we're doing Zoom training sessions with this team. I'm doing jumping jacks in my living room, like on Zoom. I'm just like,
wow.
man, this is not it. And that was kind of when I was like, man, I don't know if I am really into this anymore. Because I think for a lot of people, not just me, that was a chance for everybody to kind of pause and reevaluate, what am I even doing?
Yeah.
And it was a position where I was thinking, I could maybe make it to a higher level where I could make a living, but what kind of living would it be? I'm going to be, maybe 30 years old and not have a career going, and you have to stop playing at some stage. And so I just made the choice, I'm going to stop, and I think I'm doing well with this voiceover thing. I feel like I have a knack for it, and I'm going to try to make a career out of it. And so that's kind of when it all shifted. And just one week I woke up, I looked at my girlfriend and I said, "No, I'm done. I'm done playing." She was like, "What are you talking about?" No, I'm done. I'm done. And so I just went all, took all that, kind of obsession with soccer and just put it
Mhm.
into voiceover. And I do not regret it at all.
Do you find any parallels come about um, when you get a script or an audition, and coming from an athletic background, when you get copy that is sports related, do you take elements of your playing days and try to immerse yourself, using that same dedication on the pitch to try to exude that into the copy to make it relatable?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, sports like promos, like the two of us do, is like some a place where that's where I feel like there's the highest correlation, is because I know what it feels like to be in a high pressure situation. I know what it feels, especially as the goalkeeper. I know what's riding on a game like that. I know I've been there, and I know how it feels like the 5 or 10 minutes before the game where your heart's pounding, you're waiting to walk out, you can hear people, and it's like it's scary, really. Like that moment is scary, and I think you kind of try to convince yourself like, no, I'm actually excited. But what it is it's fear. It's kind of an anxiety thing, and having that feeling, you can really understand what the copy means. I
Yeah,
didn't play at like a level that is, NFL or whatever, the stuff that we're narrating now, but I think that feeling probably just gets more magnified as you go to those levels. So to have that kind of grip of it is helpful.
I'm sure, because I think at any level of sports, even the kids in Pop Warner, there's a sense of excitement, there's a sense of fear, there's a sense of anxiety, because you're about to be literally on display in front of people who may like you or loathe you, and you have
Yeah.
to go out there and perform and execute. And depending and depending on what you do, you may be the determining factor in victory or defeat. And especially for you, like we, alluded to, being the goalkeeper, you are the ultimate line of defense. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can imagine the pressure of having to do that. And no, maybe you're not at Wembley or you're not in Liverpool, but
Yeah.
still there's pressure. Like, if I gotta, okay, he's coming, and then you're trying to determine the angle, if he's gonna pass it off, or whatever. You're processing a lot of things at one time, in order to stop this guy from getting past you. Um, how do
Yeah.
you use um that experience, and let's say you have a script that may be a challenge,
Yeah.
because there's
I'll,
certain
I'll-
words that everyone, there's always these posts on Facebook or wherever where they're asking, what's a word you have difficulty with, and then people start listing all types of words. Are there any
how long you got?
instant yeah, are there any instances where you just got hung up on a word and you're like, I say this word at least once a year or something, but
Yeah.
today is the day I cannot get it out.
I can't think of like a specific instance, but I do know the feeling. So I'm sure that it's happened over and over again where it's like, there's some word that you can't say or whatever it is. Usually I'll say things a few times in my head and then a few times out loud, and that kind of irons it out for the most
Yeah.
part. Um, but in terms of like, is there something sports wise? I think sports, like the connection there is like it's really good training for like adversity and just I think life in general, where like things like that come up where
Mhm.
you can't get a word out and maybe you're in an important session and there's people on the other side listening to you, and they're sometimes that silence can be deafening on the other end.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I think like in those moments, it helps to just have those tools where you're like, okay, this is how I deal with pressure. I breathe in deeply and I just focus on the task at hand. And that helps a lot, I would say.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, for your more, non-sports related things, and I wanna go back just a bit. So you told your lady, "Hey, soccer thing ain't my jam no more, but this VO thing, I'm kinda liking her a little bit." Um, when did you so once you made that decision, did you just go full bore? Did you slowly try to, get into the process, or you just like, nope, I'm going in guns blazing? Like, explain your process and your decision making into your foray into VO.
Yeah. I was, kind of one foot in VO, one foot in soccer at the time. So then when the one foot got cut off, then I was kind of like, you know, um, yeah, I pretty much just put all of the energy that I was putting into that into this new thing, this new career, and started to take it more seriously. And I said, okay, well, I'm doing these smaller projects for people, but if I want to make it a career, I need to find an agent. I need to do the things, marketing wise and business wise, and get better at my craft and those things. That's when I started doing the coaching and really, watching as much content online as I could on the subject and
Yeah.
just learning, just really. I'm a big believer in like just a little bit every day of just I'll watch a little bit of video in my downtime. I'll watch videos on this, or I'll read something about it, and I feel like that stuff over time really stacks up. And that's how I can that's how anybody can get really good at something.
Yeah, one of my favorite football players, Max Crosby. He always says, just give 1% more every day.
Yeah.
And if you can
Yeah.
just give that 1% more, that's 1% more than you did the day before. So give another 1%. And I think sometimes because we want to give 100% of something, but then if we fall short, we see it as a failure. I look at it as, okay, you gave 99% today. If you give another 1% tomorrow, it's still 100%.
Yeah.
and you just keep going. It's incremental. You can still get to 100%. You don't have to get 100% that day. You can do 99 days of 1%. And guess
Right.
what? On that 100th day, it's still 100%. Um, when you look at the trajectory of your career, because you said you started right around in the pandemic, so we're talking not even 4 years ago. And
Yeah.
you've landed some pretty good projects, kid. And you think I ain't no kid, I'm a grown man, but sorry, it's a habit. But you've been on some pretty good projects. Did you foresee, within that small time frame that you're like, I'm pretty good at this because I'm getting a lot of stuff.
Ah, I think I'm still waiting for that day to come where I'm like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. You know what I mean? I
Oh,
think
cut it out.
no, I mean, I think everybody like I think we all have a sense of imposter syndrome where it's like, hey, I know like logically that I'm pretty decent at it, but I still think there's so much to do. Like there's, I think we all look at the things that we've done and then we look at the things we haven't done and those things are bigger. So I definitely have that, but no, I do like see how in 3 or 4 years it's a yeah, I guess it's impressive what I've done. And I think yeah, I think it's just down to what we were saying before, like just down to really immersing yourself in the craft. And I'm I don't put so much pressure on it,
Yeah.
wanting it to go quickly. I think it just kind of happened that way. And I understand it can totally change, you know what I mean? It could be next year I'm doing nothing. So I just have fun with it and I don't take I don't I'm really like if I'm doing a lot of work and then work slows down, I don't really put a lot of pressure. Okay, I need to up my work rate. I need to start doing more marketing emails. I need to start doing this and that. I kind of just go do something else and then I come back to it. It's like voice acting is like a Zen art in that way. It's like you kind of just have to like let it go, and just kind of go away and come back to it when you're ready. Um, and so yeah, that's kind of I don't know if that answers your original question, but
No, that's no, that I think that's generational
mhm.
because for for folks your age, your generation versus like my generation or your folks' generation, if there's ever a slowdown in work, we tend to panic like what's going on? What do you mean I'm not working today? I don't have any sessions this week. I didn't
Yeah,
have any sessions last week, but you guys is like, all right, well, hey, look, there's a dog. It's like you guys can focus and lock in on something else and it doesn't stress you out. It doesn't worry you at all. It has no consequence whatsoever. But and then when it gets back to, back on regular schedule, like, all right, let's work. I envy that. Um, I'm learning to do it in certain aspects of my life. But with voiceover, it's such a and I learned a new term uh from the youngins. It's such a hockey stick because it can go like this and then go
yeah,
like this. And then it can go like this and go like that, and they're like, "Oh, 2 hockey I get it." So, it can be such a hockey stick at times where you're just trending, 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 and now you're on the other side of that roller coaster where it comes down and you're like, "Oh, we're there now." Um,
yeah.
and you've touched on it, already, but let's go into it a little bit more. Have you had times in your career already where you've experienced um some really good highs and then you've had that low period? um how or what did you do to just kind of motivate yourself and keep yourself going until you got back up?
Yeah, I mean, I know, I'm an avid listener of your podcast, so I hear, the people the legends of the game that have been in this longer than I have been, and you guys all talk about those dips where one year it's high, one year it's low, and I think I just haven't had the time to have. the low yet, really. Like it's just kind of been it's been 3 or 4 years. I've been with my agents for almost 2 years now, so it's not. I don't have enough data to have that kind of experience. But I've had the months where it's been lower, and I've had the months where it's been higher. Um, and yeah, that's kind of going back to what I was saying earlier. Is kind of like, sometimes you'll have months where you're working all the time, and those are the times when I'm going to put all my focus into voiceover, and I'm going to really try to keep riding this wave. And then when it dips for a few months, I'm gonna go do something else. I'm not gonna I'll do the things that I need to do. I'll send out the emails I need to send out. I'm always gonna put 100% into auditions and make sure that I'm really trying to hit the emotional points of the auditions, and I'm not just phoning them in.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm gonna kind of forget about it, and I'm gonna put my mind somewhere else. Other hobbies that I have, hanging out with friends and family and stuff like that. And I find usually when I do that, that's when the work starts to pick up. But it's like, I think I say it and it sounds like, oh, I just don't care, but it's a harder process than it sounds to do that. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes you start really thinking about it, and that's when I come to the revelation. I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm thinking too hard. I need to go do something else.
Yeah. It's you know, I've been at this now 15 years, and you can feel like you're on top of the world, and red carpets roll out, velvet ropes will fall, and it's like, "Hey, it's Trey, come on in." And then all of a sudden it's like, "Who are you?" It happens, but you have to find um something that centers you, and you can put your focus on other things until you know everything is revolution. So you're going to start here, you're going to get here, you're going to come here, and you're going to come right back. So it just keeps spinning, keeps spinning. um Here's a question I did not start off with, and I usually do, especially for my gentlemen with heavier voices. um when did the change happen for you? Because and we're probably going to play some of your stuff either before or after the show. um when I first heard you read, and I'm like, what? Where did that come from? And when it first happened, because and I've talked to plenty of dudes, and it's somewhat the same story. I sounded like this, and then I picked up the phone, and all of a sudden this came out. So, like, if you can recall that, when did the transition for you? Did it freak you out, or you were just like, oh, this is me now? Okay.
Yeah, I think it was probably a more gradual process for me. I think I always had a pretty deep voice. Even like the before the drop was like deeper than my classmates, and then it got even deeper. Probably somewhere around like, I don't know, second or third grade, maybe a
Cut
little
it
older.
out, dude. You had that at third grade?
Maybe not quite this much, but maybe sixth grade or something like that. Yeah, around 12, 13 years old, probably. Yeah, so that's about sixth grade. But it was always pretty deep, I think. And I think, like, going back to what I was saying about growing up with English teachers, like I always was pretty good. Like I had a pretty good vocabulary at a young age. So people would, I'd be talking to people, who's that? And so, yeah, I probably somewhere around sixth grade, but it was probably more gradual for me. It wasn't like there's that story of Don LaFontaine where mid sentence, he was like, hello. But
Right.
it wasn't
Yeah.
like that for me.
Yeah, mine, it was I remember it like it was yesterday. Outside playing with friends, and sounding like SpongeBob. Kind of sorta. And then the next day the phone rings, and I'm like, "Hello." And I believe it was my aunt on the phone, and she thought I was just some guy answering the phone. She's like, "Is my sister there?" I'm like, "Auntie is me." She's like, "Oh, me who?" So, yeah, it's weird how how it seems to happen. I don't think I've ever heard any story other than Don LaFontaine where it just
Right.
I don't know, it's just a freaky thing. Shout out to genetics. Hey. Uh What was your first booking?
Oh, like first ever or first with an agency?
Well, so I guess that's a two-parter. So
Yeah.
when you still had that 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and then you, as you said, got the soccer foot cut off, so now you got 1 foot all the way in. Do you recall, the first booking that you got and like, "This is cool. I wanna continue doing this." And, like, what was the feeling of accomplishment, or what did you feel when got that first booking and was like, "Ah, this is alright."
Yeah. I think the first 6 months that I had signed with my agency, I was still abroad. And the kind of the agreement was like, hey, that's fun, you're abroad and stuff, but you got to come back. Okay, the time zones, it's not working for us. So
Right.
I knew I was going to leave, but I was still auditioning for stuff when I was there. And one of the like early things that I booked was, it was like a pitch for a documentary, where they needed a guy with like a New York accent put on, to narrate. It was some sort of kind of documentary or narration for like a gambling type document. I don't think it ever came out, but it was within a couple of weeks of signing with this agency, so I was really excited about it. And I was out. I think I was in Portugal at the time, actually, with some friends. I mean,
Oh, wow.
so still in Europe, because the flights are real cheap. It's like 30 euros to go to a whole different country. So
That's crazy.
I was there, and then I got a phone call, and I'm like, no way already. And that was super exciting. And I felt like a hot shot with my friends, like, oh wow, sorry, my agent's calling. Uh,
Yeah.
so that was definitely really fun. Um, and then that's the first one, and that really sticks out in my mind. And then I guess the one where I was like, wow, this is a big job, and this feels like I'm really doing it now. Was I was the opening voice for the Big Ten, last year and this year as well. And
Yeah.
I remember getting that job and my agent calling me and saying, "Hey, I went out to lunch with my agents, and I was singing the praises of a well-known promo voice to them who's on their roster. I won't say who it is, but I was saying, "Oh, I love this guy's reads. He's amazing. He's fantastic." I was saying all this stuff, and then they were kind of nodding, like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I was like, "Oh, it seemed like they didn't really react to that." And then the next day, my agent calls and he's like, "Hey, it was between you and that guy that you were talking about
Oh,
yesterday."
wow.
And so that was a moment where I was like, "What? No, no way!" And so that really sticks out in my head.
That's cool. I've had that moment. I was auditioning for something, and it was out of me and Dave Fenoy.
Yeah,
And, needless to say, I did not get it, but just to know that it was down to me and him, I'm like, "I might be okay. I think I'm pretty good. If it came to me and him,
yeah,
that's pretty good company. That is pretty
yeah.
good company." Now, you said you going back to the documentary, um, and you had to put on a do you have a quote unquote New York accent? Because listening to you, I've lived in in New York for a few years. I lived in Staten Island. I got family in Brooklyn, and I'm kind of a natural mimic. I can listen to people and then pick it up. I don't hear an accent from you. Were you upstate, or were you in the city?
No, I grew up. Yeah, first I lived in the city, and then I was raised in Long Island. But
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, my childhood, I was surrounded by New York accents. My stepdad is a pretty thick New York guy. He won't say he does, but he does. And just a lot of my like friends' parents, just hey, how you doing? Nice to see you, and like
There
that
it
kind of thing,
is. Yeah.
you know. And just so many of those people in my childhood. It's just I just have it.
Now,
Yeah.
have you pulled from that to help you with reads as well?
For sure, when it calls for it, certain jobs they'll just specifically ask for a New York accent. Like I did something for the Belmont Stakes last year, and they wanted a kind of New Yorky type vibe for that, and so I put that on, and Usually my note is, hey, can you pull it back a little bit? It's a little, so it's leaning a little bit too mafia for our liking at this point.
It's too real. Like, hey,
Yeah. So usually that's usually the note, but yeah, it's fun when I get to do it. I love to do it.
that's cool. Um, it's a little different for me when I'm asked to do certain accents. Growing up in the South and you get an audition and they say they want an authentic Southern accent, that's kind of a stretch because, well, which one do you want?
Right. It's a large area.
Do you want a
Yeah.
Do you want a Georgia accent? Do you want something down in Texas? You want Arkansas like that? You want something from Kentucky? You know,
Right.
so it's so generic, and I just think about, okay, which ones have I heard? Which ones have I actually used? Um, I've gotten out of speeding tickets just because I had a Southern accent and bring up a conversation. And now me and the sheriff are talking, and he's like, "Where you from?" I said, "Well, I got people right down there," and he's like, "Sure enough," I'm like, "Yeah, man, my grandfather and so and so they grew up about 15 miles from here," and he's like, "Oh, yeah, did they go to so and so high school? Like, you went there? Yeah, I went there. Yeah, my brother went there back in '87. I have no brother, by the way, and he played ball a couple years there and got hurt, and we ended up moving back down to Florida where my folks are from." And he's like, "Oh man, well shoot, just be careful out there and keep it down under 70." I'm like, "All right, man, I appreciate it." And my friends are like, "What just happened?" I just got out of the ticket. That's what happened. So survival skills. Survival skills.
New York accent has never gotten me out of a speeding ticket. I don't think it has the potential to do that.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
probably look at you like, "Oh, you're a city slicker, huh?
Yeah.
You boys
Yeah.
come through here and just think you own the road." Yeah, that does not work.
But that's
Um,
weird because in the South, there's, certain aspects of each accent, like you were saying, that they're similar, but it's kind of like saying, oh, can you do an Eastern accent? And then that's encompasses New York, Philly, Maine, Boston. It's like it's kind of the same thing, but people just say, oh, it's a Southern accent.
yeah,
It's interesting.
it really is. Have you done any training or have considered doing any dialect or accent training to kinda add some more things to your toolbox?
In terms of accent training, no, not really. I'm pretty decent at listening to something over and over and kind of getting a feel for it
Okay.
that way. I'm not against doing it. I'll do it. I just haven't done it up till now. I can do a pretty decent French accent,
I could
having
imagine
lived there for
so,
a while.
having been there.
Yeah. Like my French accent in English is much better when I'm, trying to speak with a French accent in English versus trying to actually speak French. I,
Oh,
don't
okay.
I don't sound French in French, but I can sound French in English. If that makes sense.
It
But
makes
yeah,
perfect sense. Have you
there's
done
so many
any
intricacies with, sorry, what was that?
No, I was gonna ask, have you done any, French VO at all? Or had to use that accent, for a voiceover?
I've done it one time. I've done accents for stuff, but I've done actual in French voiceover one time in France. Um, it was for a new alcohol brand, and I
Huh.
was under 25 at the time, but in France they don't care, so I was able to do it. And in the US, you can't do that if you're over 20, if you're under
Under
25.
21, yeah. Yeah.
And I just had to say it was kind of like it's very similar to like the Dos Equis commercial. Have you seen that guy? Stay thirsty, my friends. It's like
Yeah.
that type of thing. But I had to say "Je suis Bellevoix," which in French means I am Bellevoix, which was the name of the alcohol. And so I did that, but that was it. So I did a lot of like sessions for companies in France when I was living there, and it's interesting because they a lot of the time they will market in English because they're marketing to all of Europe. So there's actually like a decent amount of work in Europe for an English speaker, even if you're in a country that doesn't speak the language, primarily.
Absolutely. I was about to That was actually my next question. Um, how are you marketing to the international markets out there? What are you finding that you're having ease or difficulty reaching back out to, you know, France and Italy and Germany? Because I actually have reps in the UK, and I had this one guy who sends me work every now and then in Italy. And like you said, a lot of the companies there, even though they're international, they market to everyone because English for many people is a second or a third language, but because it's more marketable to put on to television or on radio, they are looking for English speakers. Have you found success working with clients internationally?
Yeah, I was when I was in France, I had an agent in Paris who I still work with from time to time. It's less now because they really like to do stuff in person.
Yeah.
Um, they really, even like during COVID for them, they're like, "What? We're gonna do it online? That's crazy." It doesn't really exist as much there. And I've kind of been the one being like, "Hey, I know I'm over here, but I can still do. There's this thing called Source Connect, or I think they use
Right.
SemiPro Pro over there, and so they've been kind of open to that. So I've been doing a little bit of work with them, and then I also have an agent in the UK that will send me stuff from time to time. But it's definitely slowed down since I left. Like I said, they really like you to be in person, um, which was fun when I was there. It was like really, really interesting to be working for those companies because you'd go to an ad agency to do the job, and the script would be in English. You'd be getting direction in French, and then you'd have to speak. And it was really
Wow.
test the limits of your brain. Uh, but it was fun, and I think it was like really good preparation for coming to do sessions in the US. I was like, all right, good. Everything's in English. That's makes things easy. Step
Yes.
up.
How would you compare the markets as far as representation over there versus over here? One thing that I do enjoy about the international game is it's usually little to no auditions. They'll usually just reach out and say, "Hey, you're the guy for this. You booked that. Go do it." Versus over
Yeah.
here, it's like you said, it was down to you and a guy, and down to me and Dave Fenoy. Like, how do you? Are there aspects of the industry that I want to make sure I ask this correctly, just in case um I just totally fumbled the ball. But have you found that your experiences have fared better versus the whole, and I don't want to say cattle call because I mean, well, in
Sure.
some cases it's a whole bunch of people auditioning for one thing over here versus, like I alluded to with the international thing, is like, this is yours if you want it, come get it, let's go. Like, was that
Yeah.
an easy or difficult transition for you?
That was definitely nice having that because especially I was more of a niche where they don't have a ton of American voices over there compared to how many French voices they have. So yeah, like you were saying, they just kind of call you up. Hey, you got a session on Friday, and you're like, great, okay. I didn't have to audition or anything, and that's really fun. Um, but that being said, then there's also the other side of it where now that I'm in the US, there's more opportunity and I think more demand for my voice than there was there. Like every once in a while there would be a project where they need an American voice versus a British voice or like a just kind of ambiguous European kind of sound, right?
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so it's just different. I mean, yeah, I was still auditioning for stuff in the US when I was there, so it wasn't too much of a shock to me. But it's just different. I probably like it the European way better because, you just all right, you got a session, you don't have to worry about auditioning, which is nice. Um,
it's a beautiful thing.
and sometimes you'll get, you'll get like an audition from, maybe you'll get the same audition from three different regional agents, and you're like, well, okay, and now I know what I'm up against.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I recall getting an audition, and I guess it was a big campaign because it started coming from everywhere. And one of my reps forgot to blind copy.
Yeah, that
So
happens
I got a
frequently.
chance to see who I was up against, and I'm like,
Yeah,
well, this is a challenge. Oh, he really? And like, all right. And I remember one time I copied all the email addresses, was like, "Good luck, gentlemen. I'm sure if I see you, that you saw me, and we're all up against this." And to this day, I don't know who booked it, but I don't think any of us did. But it was kind of cool to kind of see who your contemporaries are and who you're up against. Um,
yeah. I try to look after I send in the audition, yeah, so it doesn't mess with my read.
so speaking of contemporaries, um, coming into this industry, um, and where you are at 25, a lot of us who are in it now, there were people that we look back and say, "Hey, that guy's doing it in a major way, or she's doing it in a major way," or "Hey, I didn't know he was the voice of that too, and that too." Like, who are some people when you were first starting out, or even now, that you look at and go, "Now that's how you do it," and "Hey, that's a cool thing that they did." Like, who are some of your contemporaries that you look at now, that now that you're in it and go, "Yeah, that's where I wanna be."
Yeah, I mean, it's like I have like a list of people where I was just looking at, all the different websites, agency websites, manager websites, looking at people. And I really have people for different genres. Like, when I think of sports, I think of you and I think of Andia Winslow.
Oh, yeah. That's my girl.
And I mean, in terms of like a sports read, I just, those are you two are the two people I look to. And then for like kind of more network promo-y things, I really love Mike McCall. I really like, the Howard Parkers, the Ashtons,
Oh, yeah.
for trailer and stuff like that. And Gabe is a dude I really looked up to too, because I'm like, oh, there's a young guy doing it. All right,
Mhm.
okay. Um, and then yeah, obviously, Dave Fenoy, who we've mentioned, I worked with a lot, Bob Bergen, kind of all the people that you see showing up online and interviews and stuff like that are the people I look to. And I'm sure there's 1,000 other people that I'm forgetting, but um, I kind of break it down by genre and um, just study. I think there's something to appreciate about all of them. Um, and not to copy, but to just look at and say
Yeah.
like, wow, that's fantastic. And I try to look more for like, what do I think got them into the zone for that read? Like, what do I think put them into that pocket? Because there's like a pocket where you want to be in for a read that like, okay, I'm nailing it, or at least I'm feeling like I'm nailing it, which is good enough for me. If I feel like I'm nailing it and I'm not, okay, fine. I can't nail it every time, but if I can just feel like, okay, that felt good,
Yeah.
then that's where I want to be. So I like to see that and say, what do I think that person did to get there?
So I'll share a secret with you.
Yeah,
For my sports reads, I will usually wear a jersey, or
I
I'll
love it.
surround myself with something that's sports related. Um, and then I think about how I feel with the jersey on. It's football season, or I might put on like one of my Raiders hats, and if I was at the game, how hyped up would I be? And
Yeah,
then, deliver it, but maybe not as hyped up, but just feeling like I'm in a sports environment. And I do that for not just my sports related stuff, but for even when doing promos. I had to do some real serious stuff back when the things were happening in Ferguson and with the George Floyd case and things like that. Um, when that was going on, um, I would listen to like civil rights leaders speaking and the emotion that came out of them when they're talking about this. So
yeah,
then when it was time for me to go into a read, it's tonight on ABC. We look back at, so and so 25 years ago. What has changed and what are they doing to make things better? And I had to bring that kind of emotion out. So I would definitely look at things that I knew could evoke that thing. Andrea, and she shared it, and I can share. She actually said on the podcast, she will physically like move and work out and get up a good energy and not to a sweat to where she's like, "Ah, okay, I'm feeling it and I'm pumped." And then she'll go into her sports promo read. So
I saw her say that one time, or she'll play the sport that she's actually supposed to be reading
yep.
for, which is like the next level dedication, which is so cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm not about to go run a 40-yard dash and then come upstairs and now I'm winded. Tonight on yeah, that's not gonna work. But
Yeah,
she is she's a bad chick, man. She is a bad chick
yeah,
and
she's awesome.
definitely one of the people that even I go and study and look at um because of just her her she's immensely talented, but she's also very dedicated to the craft too. And I
Yeah,
think in order for people to thrive in this, you have to have some sense of dedication to it. Like you said, it's not about phoning it in or mailing it in. You really have to want to study the copy, immerse yourself in it, put yourself in that character's place and try to become those words when you speak.
yeah,
um what's your process um in regards to tackling in audition? um is there a the joke about there's a joke about Batman and like, well, if Batman has prep time, he can beat anybody. So do you have like this prep time where you're saying, okay, here's a script, it's due at 1, it's 10:15, I got a session at 11. Like, give us a I think
yeah,
the term that they use now is the "get ready with me" thing. So what's your get ready with me,
yeah.
um, when you're going through your auditions?
Yeah, I like to really spend time with a script. Um, I'm not I'm not the 60 auditions a day guy. I can't sustain that. If I do 5 a day, I'm happy. I think
Yeah.
that's the sweet spot for me, where I can really spend time. I'll even sometimes I'll grab a script, I'll read it, I'll go take a walk and think about it. I like to really think about what is the scenario, what is the I like to play characters that are going to tell this story because like most of the stuff we're reading for, we don't personally relate to. It might be a sport you don't play, it might be a product you don't use, whatever it is.
Right.
Some things I just can't relate to. So I have to think of, well, who could relate to this? Who could be a person that I can play who is the poster child for this thing? And then, so that's a lot of the work that I do is thinking of, and I like to spend as little time in the booth as possible. So like I'm thinking about it to the point where I feel like this is a perfect picture that I've painted in my head. Let me go in the booth, do a few takes, and hopefully that'll knock it out. Doesn't always, but that's what I like if it's, if I can do that. Um, and then what I really like to do sometimes too is to take stuff that maybe is not a character, but it's like a thing you can grab onto. Like there's a so for some of my NASCAR reads, there's are you familiar with Gary Clark Jr.?
Yes.
Amazing musician. And there's a video of him performing Bright Lights live. And it's a real gritty song about just becoming famous. He's saying like I woke up in New York City on the floor and it's dun 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 dun. It's
And
really
that
like
and that
really.
that funky riff to it.
Yep, yeah. And he's performing that live. I forget where it is. It's somewhere in Austin, and he hadn't quite made it yet. Like he was just known in Austin. And this was like his breakout moment. Packed stadium. And there's a moment in the song where he goes, "You gonna know my name." And it cuts to him, and there's a scene of him, and he's got aviator sunglasses on. They're like reflective, and you can see the crowd in the glasses. And
Oh,
he's just up
that's
there
sweet.
cold, just
I
playing.
think
And
they've used that song in some spots too.
maybe, yeah. And so I look at like that moment, I'm like, what if that picture right there was a read, and it would just be gritty and it would be, you'd be in the pocket for it. So I like doing stuff like that where you take a moment and turn it into a read.
Yeah, that's cool. I did some promos for CNN. They had a series that it went back into like life in the old Vegas. So I went and looked at some Rat Pack stuff and kind of feeling that vibe. And I didn't want to make it like you said. Sometimes you can get too deep into like an accent or a dialect, and I didn't want to read something about Vegas and all of a sudden just go into this mobster thing. Hey, Vegas, come out here, and I didn't want to do that. But watching the old videos, everything was kind of laid back and cool. You could guys playing piano, smoking a cigarette kind of thing. So instead of, making it a caricature like Vegas, this Tuesday on CNN, it was more relaxed, more smooth, like, Vegas, the story of blah blah blah. All new series on CNN. Like, yeah, go check it
Yeah,
out. That kind of thing. So yeah, it's really cool, when you take the time uh to look at it and you use different scenarios to put yourself in, or just scenarios itself, and go, okay, this is the setting, this is what it's going to, the visualization of it all, I think
mhm,
is cool. um how does your family feel, about what you do? Because again, you know you're a young dude, and you're at the point in your life where most guys your age are out there, still trying to figure it out and farting around and whatnot, but you have a pretty good foundation, and you're putting some good work out there. How do they feel knowing that, hey, you see what my boy's doing, huh? Hey, it's my kid right there. Like, say, how does the family receive what you're doing?
yeah. I think they find it exciting. I think nobody. Um, it's not like I come from a line of actors or something like that. So it's kind of different from what everyone else is doing, which is fun. And my mom's thing was just like, hey, just get a degree, all right, just get a degree, and then do whatever you want. Okay, so I did that, and I think she's really happy for me. So it's just fun. It's really fun because I didn't a lot of people that I know were not doing this sort of thing, so it's very different, and I think it's exciting. So yeah, they love it. To
That's
answer
pretty
to
cool.
answer the question.
Is there something that is on your whiteboard or bucket list or whatever that you go, okay, I haven't done that yet?
Definitely in the character space. Um, I spent a long time training with Dave Fenoy. And I just, recently, the way my agency is structured, you have to apply to both rosters like it's two different agencies. So I just got on there, so hopefully the ball gets rolling there. And now there's a strike, so I'm gonna have to wait a little bit. But I think that's the next frontier that I'd like to tackle. And just if I can keep doing more of what I'm doing, I'll be happy, because I'm really just enjoying just what I'm doing in my life right now. And so I'm happy if it stays like this and nothing else happens, I'm more than happy. And if something else happens, I'm even more happy than happy. So yeah.
Speaking of things you enjoy, you're a little bit of a culinary dude too. I've seen some of the things that you get down in the kitchen, sir. Where'd that come from?
My mom always loved to cook, and I would always help her. And so I think, yeah, that's somewhere in there. It got into my blood, and I love to. It's like, I mean, just doing nothing else, cooking, maybe put in headphones with a podcast or something like that, and have a good meal for yourself. That's my happy place. And I really something about, I don't know, just the like finding different techniques and stuff that makes better food, and cooking for people that you love and stuff like that is really, really enjoyable for me. So I don't know where it comes from. I just really like to cook.
What's your
Yeah,
go-to or favorite dish to make?
that's a great question. I really like making tamales. That's really
Really?
fun.
I was not
Yeah,
expecting that. I'm thinking you've been over in Europe forever and ever. I just knew something fancy was gonna pop up. He said tamales. All right, we'll
tamales.
go with
Yeah.
that.
I mean, The thing, here's the secret about French food is that if you go to France and you go to Paris, you have to pay up to get good French food. If you go to any cafe, it's going to be okay. And there's kind of like a barrier to entry where it's like you have to pay a certain amount to get good French food. So I'm not, being a student over there, I was not dining in the Michelin star restaurants. So,
I got you.
I'm not super high on French food, but I really like Asian cuisine, like Thai cuisine, Vietnamese cuisine. I like Mexican food from like Oaxaca area, like moles and stuff like that. Um, so I like that, a lot of South American, Mexican, and Southeast Asian cuisine is probably my favorite.
Having been out here in the Southwest, uh, I have fallen in love with street corn.
Ooh, with like the mayonnaise and the chili,
Oh
yeah,
my
it's so
goodness.
good. Yeah, yeah,
It's like I'm like, I'm gonna have to do an extra 5 reps on the bench because, and and it's authentic because there's a very the Mexican and Latin contingent out here runs deep in Mexico, out here in Vegas.
yeah,
And there are a lot of food trucks and street vendors. And that's my thing. I've always been a food truck street vendor uh kind of guy. I sure you can go into a Mexican restaurant and get a pretty good meal, but it's something about the folks who are doing this, 8, 9, 10 hours a day outside, um, you know, spices that they probably have grown in their own,
yeah,
yard, and just putting love and passion and generations of sharing and passing down into it. It's I don't know. It's just I think it's more authentic, which is weird to say that. Well, is a Mexican restaurant not authentic? Sure,
right.
but I just think it adds a little bit more something when you get it from the folks that are out here, like
Yeah,
like doing what we do. They're freelance and they're like, "Hey, you like our stuff?
right.
Come back. Did you like it? Hey, well, come back and try more." And it's the same thing with us. "Hey, did you like my voice? Well, if you need me again for that thing, I know a guy." So
Yeah,
I kind of share with that. So yeah, I love and I wasn't really I liked Mexican food prior to coming here. And I think that like has turned into love because if you ever get a chance to come out here, as a couple of places I would love to take you around to and let your palate dance a bit,
I would love that. Yeah,
because it is
yeah.
it is it is something else. Before we wrap, and as I ask the final question for all of my guests, um, and now I ask you, kind sir, how does Gentleman Jack take time out for himself?
Wow. I right now when I stopped playing soccer, I said I need to start another sport to do as a hobby because I can't keep playing soccer. I'll be too competitive about it. But I also have to stay in shape. So I started doing jujitsu, which I
Nice.
love. And so I do it just about every day. And it's so much fun. It's like kind of I don't know, we're kind of holed up in our booths all day and kind of doing the thing inside, and it's fun to just kind of go and just go crazy and be aggressive and do a martial art, which is a lot of fun for me. I do a lot of improv right now. I'm studying at the Groundlings School in LA.
Nice.
Um, so that is also a lot of fun, and I guess that's semi career related, but I just see it as fun. I don't put any pressure on it or anything. It's so much fun. And then yeah, I'm a big walk guy. I love taking walks. Like during the day, I'll go out. Like I was saying, I think before when I get a script or something, I'll read it and then go for a walk. I love taking walks. I need to be in motion if I'm even like half a day, if I'm not doing something where I'm walking around or playing a sport or working out or something, I'll get kind of like irritable. So I have
Oh,
to like get out
I
the
gotta I gotta do something. Yeah, I feel
get
you.
out the zoomies. Yeah. So yeah, so those are the things. It's a lot of physical activity and then improv and just hanging out with friends, hanging out with my brother, playing video games with people. That's yeah, nothing too crazy.
That's cool. What
Yeah.
games are you into right now?
Yeah, I usually play like I'll play games with people, so I like playing like Super Smash. Those games, like kind of those, party games, or trying to think of another one. There's a great game. It's a Nintendo game right now. If you ever want to play with friends, it's called The Ultimate Chicken Horse, and it's a fun one. So I recommend it.
All right, I'll have to
It's
look
it's
that.
almost like you build your own obstacle course, and then you and whoever you're playing with, you guys try to get through it, and you try to stitch the other guy up by building stuff that he can't get past and stuff like that. It's very fun.
Oh, see, that's me because I'm yeah, that sounds like something, and I just block everybody in like, yeah.
Yeah. Once you get a lead, and once you're ahead on the leaderboards, then you just make it impossible for the other guy to get through.
Oh yeah, that's a good game. That sounds definitely that's up my alley right there. Um, how can the folks keep in touch with all things Jack goings on the socials? How can they reach out to you and check you out?
Yeah, I'm not on the socials all too much, but Sanders Sounds, at Sanders Sounds on Instagram. That's where you can, I'll answer any DMs or whatever, and I'm posting on there pretty infrequently, but I do post sometimes. And my website, sanderssounds.com. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's a very cool site. When you go
Thank you.
on it, it looks like a phone thingy. And it's all interactive and stuff. And I'm like, well, look at this. Um, so yeah, that was really cool design there. Um,
Thanks.
yeah, man. Yeah, it was really cool. So we have come to the conclusion, and I just want to thank you once again. And I know it's been a year and some change, but I'm sorry I missed your DM. But
Ah, I'll send you another one.
but I think he's doing okay, folks. This is Jack Sanders. I am Tre Mosley, and you good people out there, take some time out for yourself. See you next time. Thanks for listening to the Take Time Out with Tre Mosley podcast, part of the Titan Media Network. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcast. To see the video version of this, you can find us on YouTube on the Take Time Out with Tre Mosley YouTube page. Thanks for listening, or thanks for watching. Either way, we'll see you next time.